Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about what I think is my dream optic setup. Okay, so I'm not going to be talking fantasy. I'm not going to be talking about things that are kind of impossible. I'm going to talk about things that I think are very possible given the current technology. And the reason I know that they're possible is because they exist. But the problem is I can't get everything I want in one optic setup. Okay, so usually when we talk about optics, people are either talking about some type of a red dot setup or some type of LPBO. Okay, so the problem that I have with these tube optics, okay, and I don't care whether this one is this one's a primary arms PLX 128. This is a $1,500 scope here, right? $1,500, Japanese glass, top of the line, right? But the problem with this is that I can't hold this in some weird position like this and get on target. Now, you might say, hey, why would I be holding some weird position like this? Well, picture yourself on the ground trying to shoot through some small mouse hole, and you're trying to get the gun into a position like this. I've had issues with that, right? It's hard with the with this type of a setup, right? With these EOTech big window styles. Now, even though there's a holosun 510C, right? With this big window style, I can have this thing all the way out here, right? And I can get on target. Okay, so you can see how easily I can make my shots in these unconventional positions. I can't do that with any type of a tube optic, okay? So it has to be, right, now we're talking about a general purpose, something for a general purpose rifle setup, okay? So I consider this a specialty setup, okay? I consider this a general purpose setup, but I think that there's certain things that we can do to this to make it better, okay? So, I compiled here a list of things that I think we need to put into a big window optic. All right, so the first thing on my list is the big window, right? And over here, I basically I'm giving credit to EOTech as I think the first ones that kind of came up with this box design that holosun, I guess, adopted it, and in my opinion, has basically taken the ball further. I have shot EOTechs, I have shot the holosuns. I like the holosuns better, okay? Even if the EOTech and the holosun 510Cs were at the same price, me personally, I would take the holosuns, solar powered, battery backup. You know what? I don't like dealing with battery problems, okay? And this one, at best, sometimes remember, I use the guns a lot. They're always moving around. They're always being used. So realistically, regardless what holosun says, I usually get about a year of battery life out of these optics, okay? So I want the EOTech big window design, but I don't want the EOTech battery life issues, okay? So as far as the design, this is the design I want to go for, okay? Now, as far as reticle, okay, reticle, I want the ACSS with the bullet drop compensator. And if you're not familiar with the ACSS, it's basically a horseshoe with a chevron. We're going to talk more about this. Now, it's very similar to the 65 MOA circle with the dot. Okay, so if you're just looking through it for the first time, and if I show you an optic that has a 65 MOA circle with a dot, and then I show you a 65 MOA horseshoe with a chevron, you probably, unless you know what to look for, you might not even notice the difference between the two, okay? But the horseshoe does have, the chevron, I have found, does have the advantage that it has that fine tip. What that allows me to do is, especially if I'm zeroing the rifle, I'm able to take that fine tip and I'm able to put it underneath my my bullseye, and I have a very fine aiming point, okay? And this is especially useful for, just trying to get a zero on the gun. Now, when I'm using the 2 MOA dot, okay, what happens is, like, because I'm trying to get a 50-yard zero. Well, at 50 yards, the 2 MOA dot completely covers up my bullseye, okay? So what I usually end up doing is, with a 2 MOA dot, I go to 100 yards, and I put the 2 MOA dot underneath the bullseye, right? So basically, let me get something. So let's say this is my 2 MOA dot. I'm putting it underneath my bullseye. All right. So now I'm kind of using the round part over here, kind of like it's the tip of the chevron. And let's say this is my bullseye here. It goes underneath it. And what I know from experience, right, at 100 yards, I want it to be hitting about 2 inches high, okay? Because that, kind of translate to a 50-yard zero with a second zero at 200 yards. After I get this impacting about 2 inches high at 100 yards, I'll take it out to 200 yards to make sure I'm impacting, I got my second zero at 200 yards. Okay, so that's what I usually do if I have a 2 MOA dot with the, with the 65 MOA circle. If I try to get a 50-yard zero, it completely covers my bullseye, so I cheat it. I go to 100 yards and I put it underneath my bullseye, and basically I want to impact about 2 inches high. Okay, so ideally, I would prefer to have the chevron with that fine aiming point and the horseshoe around it, okay? Now, the ACSS has that built-in bullet drop compensator. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. So I do want that bullet drop compensator. The way it works is, if you look at it here, right? So if you got a 50-yard zero, the tip will give you, you put the tip at 50 yards. That'll get you all the way out to 200 yards. At 300 yards, you're using the first dot. At 400 yards, you're using the second dot. At 500 yards, you're using the third dot over there. Okay, so that's how that kind of works. You do have to calibrate it a little bit to whatever grain bullet you're shooting. So you might have to adjust it. If for example, you're going to be doing a lot of shooting at 400 yards, I would, let's say, go in at 400 yards and make sure that I'm actually, use that dot and make sure you're actually impacting at 400 yards on the dot that you want. Okay, but the point is, I've got this bullet drop compensator. I got these 3 dots over here. Okay, they're not specific, right? They don't have like numbers or anything next to it, so I can make these anything I wanted to, right? So even if I wanted to shoot, let's say, at a further distance, right? I can make that last one 600 yards, whatever. So you got 3 dots there that you can use for a bullet drop. Okay, so now let's talk about the illuminations for a second. Okay, because again, we're talking about the Dream Optic. So far, I've said I want a big window optic, right? Something like this. I want the ACSS design, which gives me a fine aiming point. It gives me a built-in bullet drop, and it gives me the horseshoe around it, which is the equivalent of the 65 MOA circle, right? Because the horseshoe and your 65 MOA circle are both 65 MOA, okay? So I've got that. Now, the nice thing about that is I can also use the 65 MOA circle to range estimate, right? Just by itself, because at 200 yards, the foot of a man's going to go at the tip. His head's going to go over there. That's at 200 yards. At 300 yards, he's going to come up about 3/4 of the way. At 400 yards, he's going to come up about half of the way. At 500 yards, he's going to come up about 1/4 of the way. Okay, so if you're experienced with this, you can use the 65 MOA circle or the 65 MOA horseshoe to range estimate off the size of a man. All right, now of course that requires that your man be standing, okay, and you can see all of him. But this is a really quick, easy way to range estimate. Okay, so you need that 65 MOA circle. So what I want to talk now about is let's talk about illumination. Okay, for illumination, I would prefer the fiber optic. Okay, so here we're going to go to the Acog. We're going to steal some ideas from the Acog, because I have shot the Acog. The Acog, basically it is a 3X tube shape. Okay, so you're still going to have issues where if your eye relief is not right, if your head's not in the right position, you're not going to see perfectly through that tube. So I want to get rid of the problem that I have with the Acog, which is those eye relief issues and eye box issues. And the fact that I'm only shooting, like the Acog typically comes in 3X. Well, at some distances, like at close distance, right? At 10 yards, at 20 yards, I don't want magnification. Now, yes, you can get used to it, but there's always going to be a 1 second delay. Okay, so I have found when working with a 3x magnification in CQB distance, when you come up, it takes about 1 second for your brain and eyes to kind of sort things out. After 1 second, sure, no problem, you'll be able to hit your target, right? Even in in CQB distance. But there is a 1 second delay for your brain and eyes to adjust. One of the things that you can do is you can use your left eye, if you're shooting righty, use your left eye to focus on the target, use your right eye to focus on the reticle. Your brain combines the two images, and that works great. But again, there's still a 1 second delay, okay? So I want to get rid of that problem. I want to get rid of the tube shape of the Acog, but I want to keep the fiber optic, okay? Now, one of the problems with the fiber optic is that it can sometimes be too bright, okay? It can be too bright. So what I would like is, I would like some type of a sliding cover. So for example, if the, on a design, on some type of design like this, right, where the fiber optic is exposed, right, it's absorbing sunlight, I would like just a simple mechanical sliding cover that you can slide up and down to either cover it completely or expose it halfway or all the way or whatever. But that would take care of the over brightness problem. And this is not like some major technology that you need. All you need is a sliding cover to cover up that fiber optic. A lot of people use electric tape to cover it up, but I don't know why Acog never thought of just having some type of a sliding cover so people can slide back and forth to cover up the fiber optic to whatever degree they need to see what, to get the right amount of brightness for whatever they're doing. Okay, so probably in outdoors, daylight, you probably want the full fiber optic exposed, so that you get that burst that you can get on target. But if you're shooting at distance, right, I would rather just use the etched reticle, right? So the Acog does have an etched reticle. Okay, so what I would do is if I was shooting at distance, I would slide it up. I would slide up this cover to completely cover the etched reticle, so that to completely cover the fiber optic, so that I am only using the etched reticle. So on the ACSS design that we're talking about here, right, the only parts that I would want the fiber optic illuminating is the horseshoe and the chevron. Okay, not the bullet drop, not all the other stuff here, just the horseshoe and the chevron. Okay, I want those things, basically getting powered off of the fiber optic. And if I decide that, hey, I don't need that brightness, I want to be able to just slide the cover and get rid of that fiber optic lighting. And basically all I want to see at that point is the etched reticle. And I don't think that this is like too much that I'm asking for, right? This is simple technology, just a sliding cover to cut off the, feeding that light source, okay? And also, what I would also want, I believe Acog uses tritium so that you can, because at night, right, because the fiber optic has to have a light source in order for the fiber optic to work, okay? For nighttime, I believe Acog has tritium in there so that you can still see the reticle at night. So this is something that works. Great, throw it in there. Put the tritium in there. So now you don't need to see the horseshoe at night, but you want to see the chevron. Okay, so you would want the chevron, right? Just the chevron right there. You would want that illuminated with tritium so that you can see it at night. You probably don't need the rest of the horseshoe illuminated at night, because at night you're doing like pretty precise stuff. I suppose we can experiment with putting some tritium on the horseshoe and see if that's better. I'm guessing it may not work that good. I don't know. But the main thing is I need the chevron with some tritium in it, so that when the fiber optic doesn't work, because there's no sun, the chevron will still light up. And again, Acog is currently doing that, right? So again, I'm not wishing for things that don't exist. These things exist, okay? So let's talk about wind holes, okay? So on wind holes, what I want is basically, I got my 3 dots here for my bullet drops, right? And again, these 3 dots can be whatever you want it. If you've got this on an AK, they're going to mean different things. If you got this on AR, they're going to mean different things. So you've got 3 dots here that are basically just holding points that you're going to figure out for whatever you zeroed your rifle in, at whatever, at different distances, what they do for you. So it's going to be specific to you and how you zero in and what type of bullets you're using, etc. So this is very flexible. But what I also want in here are wind holes, right? So that would be these little dots off to the side over here, okay? So basically that I've kind of borrowed from the ACSS Aurora, okay? So you can look that up if you want to see what that looks like. The ACSS Aurora, basically it's the chevron with the horseshoe, the 3 dot, the bullet drop underneath it, and then it's got these wind holes off to the sides for like 5, 10, 5, 15, at least 5 and 10. If there's room there, they can also put 10, 15 and 20, but at least the 5 and 10, right? You want to have those wind holes built into your reticle. And again, all that stuff would be etched. You don't need that stuff lighting up. Because first of all, when you let's say this is running off the fiber optic, when you light it up, you lose, for example, the fine aiming point. You lose, all these things get blown up basically. You get like a little bit of a starburst, so you lose the fine aiming points of these like wind holes over here. So you want to have, definitely don't need the bullet drop, right? These 3 dots for the bullet drop and the wind holes. You definitely don't need those lighting up, and you want to have the ability to just slide your cover up your fiber optic, right? So that you can even get rid of the illumination on the chevron tip, so you just have a fine aiming point for shooting at distance if that's what you're doing. And that's going to be especially important if you put a magnifier behind this, okay? Because again, you don't need that. You want the magnifier magnifying the fine aiming points. Now, without the magnifier, we're going to talk about the magnifier down there. Without the magnifier, these 3 dots here and these wind hole dots here, you're not even going to be able to see them, right? So you need the magnifier to be able to see those details because they're tiny. Without the magnifier, all you will see here is the horseshoe and the chevron, okay? You need the magnifier to be able to see those details there. That's how this system, this ACSS system is designed, okay? So we want to have the wind holes in there etched. We don't need them illuminated, because if you're shooting at whatever, like 300 yards, 400 yards, 500 yards, and you don't need illumination, because you need fine aiming points, okay? So we want that etched. We don't want that illuminated, okay? So those are the wind holes. The ACSS Aurora, that's what we're going to steal and kind of throw into this thing, okay? So now let's talk about the magnifier, okay? So magnifier, you can go with 6x or 3x, right? And I got both. This one over here is the 6x, right? 6x magnifier. Over here, I got a 3x. This is the holosun 3x. This one's $200. This is the Vortex 6x. This was $400 when I bought it. So I do think that the $400 is a little bit extreme. I would like holosun maybe to make us a 6x, $200 magnifier, right? Maybe $250. But here's what I want. Aside from the magnifier being either a 3x or 6x, and it has to be the way holosun does this, it has to be basically slides off to the side. Actually, this is one second. I know that's the holosun. You want it to be able to slide off to the side. You want it to be reversible for a lefty or righty. Okay. There's risers that are built into this. You can see them more clearly here. There are risers in here. So because with some scopes they're like 2.5 inches over the bore, or in other scopes they're 2.75. So you need the risers built into this. It has to be a quick attach, right? A quick attach system. The reason is because one of the great things about the magnifier, right, is that at night, okay, I don't need this extra weight on the rifle, okay? So at night, I want to remove this and get this off the gun and make a lighter gun. And also, if there's a 6x, if I decide I only want a 3x, I can throw 3x on here, okay? So it has to have that quick attach so I can take it off. That's one of the problems with the LPVO is the weight. There's 1.5 pounds on top of this rifle. There's a very big difference in weight between this gun and this gun, okay? So even though this is a $1,500 scope, Japanese glass, all that good stuff, it's too heavy for a general purpose rifle. That's why this is a special purpose rifle. So let's talk a little bit more about the magnifier. What I want in the magnifier, okay, because I want more than just magnification, right? Because a lot of times people, they get these LPVOs and all they're looking for is like a bullet drop and a magnification. And if that's all you want, you can get that in red dots, right? You can get like a holosun 503G, which has the ACSS bullet drop, and you can put a magnifier behind that. And you're getting those two things without the extra £1.5. So the great things about the LPVO, right, is that it allows you to range estimate. Okay, so I want a system here that also allows me to range estimate, and from that we're going to steal from the Pegasus, right? So there's a magnifier out there called the Pegasus, which I believe was also made by the same ACSS company. I forgot what the name of the ACSS, because a lot of people associate ACSS with primary arms. No, actually, there's a different company. I think it's like Logitech or something like that. I forget the exact name. It's Dimitri's company. And they designed a magnifier which has auto ranging built into it, okay? So let's talk about the auto ranging for a second. Okay, hold on. I'm going to pause you guys for a second and bring out a paper that shows some information. Okay, so what we were talking about before, okay, the bullet drop and the wind holes have to be part of the reticle that's on the main optic, because it has to be zeroed in correctly. But the range estimating, that can be on the magnifier, okay? And the part of the reason why we want it on the magnifier is because you're not going to be needing these things unless you're actually looking at distance. And we want to put it on the magnifier part because if we're doing like CQB work, we don't need all that extra information in there. We only want that information when we're looking at distance. And that's one of the great things about the first focal plane scope, right? The first focal plane scope gives you a different amount of information if you're in 1 power versus a different amount of information if you're in maximum power, okay? So when you're in 1 power, basically normally you see something like a big duplex that's quick and easy to get on target. And then when you zoom in, right, and you go up towards maximum magnification, you start focusing in on the center. That's when you start seeing like your more of your bullet drop, your range estimating, the wind holes. You only see that as you zoom in, but it doesn't confuse you, right, when you're in CQB distance in 1x. So that's one of the benefits of the LPVO first focal plane that I want to bring over to this dream optic setup that I'm talking about. Okay? So I want it on the magnifier because this is not dependent on the zero. And what I want to do is if I'm not using it, I want to be able to flip it over to the side or completely remove it from the rifle. So let me show you guys really quick what I want to see in the magnifier, right? So in the magnifier, what I want to see is the auto ranging, right? So if you look at these lines here on the side, right? For example, if you line up your man over here and his feet are here and his head is there, well, he's at 400 yards. If his feet are there and his head's there, he's at 300 yards. If his feet are there and his head's there, he's at 500 yards. Now, if you can only see him from the waist up, like his belt is here, okay, and his head is there, he's at 350, right? Or if his belt is here and his head's there, he's at 500. So you want this auto ranging here, right? This auto ranging for quickly being able to figure out what distance a man is. Now, the other thing that I want in here is I want some type of mill lines, right? So here I got 15 mils going up, I've got 10 mils going across, so I can auto range other things besides a man, right? There's a lot of things that are standard out there, right? For example, all doors are about 80 inches tall, right? All cars are about 15 feet long, 6 feet wide. All tractor trailers are like 75 feet long, 13 and a half feet tall, okay? Most commercial airplanes, right? They're about 220 feet long. The vertical stabilizer is about 55 feet tall. So these are like standard things that you want to memorize, right? That you're likely to see out there in the world. And it doesn't matter where in the world you are. The vertical fin on an airplane, if you know that they're 55 feet tall, you can range estimate, okay? So I want that in the magnifier, right, on this part over here, okay, because I only need to see that type of detail, right? I only need to see the range estimating detail if I'm if I'm looking at things in the distance, right? So the optic that is already incorporating this is the Pegasus. The Pegasus, right? They give you the auto ranging and they give you the mill lines. Now, the one that's out there, Pegasus, just look up Pegasus magnifier. It's kind of like the first generation. I'm thinking that if they're going to improve it, right? Because I definitely see a little bit of room for improvement there. I think you have to buy the quick attach separate. So I'm thinking that second generation is going to get better, but it's already out there, right? The idea is already out there. So this is the combination of things that I would like to see that currently exist. Okay, I'm not dreaming up of things here that don't exist. These things, I'll take this off. I don't need this. I'm not shooting anymore. All these things that I'm talking about here, they currently exist. So I just need to, I need somebody, okay, to combine these in the right way so I can get them all into one optic system, right? So again, I want to start off with this reflex design. Oh, actually, it doesn't have to be a reflex design, because if you look at the holosun 512T, that's enclosed, okay? So you can even get this design, and I've actually shot the 512T. Because it's enclosed, like when you look into it, you do see a little bit more of the housing here, but it's not a whole lot. And you can still kind of hold it off to the side here and like this and get on target. So the enclosed 512T, right, the holosun 512T, is a good place to start with this, right, with the quick detach and all that. So this can come off if you need it, okay? So that's a good place to start. But instead of having it run off of battery and solar power, I would like the illumination to be off of the off of fiber optic, right? With some type of a sliding lever here, so that you can, you can control how much of that fiber optic you want, exposed. If you want to turn it off completely because you're shooting at distance, you just slide it up, turn it off completely. If you're doing more CQB work outside, pull it back. Let's say now you got this blast of brightness for a horseshoe, right? Because at CQB distance, okay, in CQB distance, I'm not looking at the chevron or the dot, okay? I'm looking at the horseshoe or the 65 MOA circle, okay? And I'm centering my target on that at CQB distance, okay? So as far as the fiber optic, I only need it really illuminating the horseshoe and the chevron, okay? And I want the backdrop to be etched so that when I turn it off, I can still see those things without the burst, right? That light burst, because sometimes you just don't need it bright. If you're shooting at distance, I try to power down my red dots as much as possible, to the point where I can just barely see it, so I can take fine shots at distance. So if you can turn it off completely and just use an etched reticle, that would be wonderful for distance shooting, right? But I want both. I want the etched reticle, and again, we're stealing from the Acog now, right? Acog is an etched reticle. They have a couple of different reticle designs out there. Etched reticle that is illuminated by the fiber optic. I want that in my dream system over here. The bullet drop underneath it, that doesn't need to be illuminated. The wind holes, they don't need to be eliminated. You're not going to see the bullet drop or the wind holes, right, until you flip the magnifier on. Okay, so this way it's not in your way if you're shooting. It's not distracting you if you're doing CQB stuff, because it's just too small. Okay, which is kind of the way it works over here with this first focal plane LPVO, right? There's the bullet drop, all that stuff. I can't see it when I'm in 1x. I have to zoom up to magnification in order to be able to see those details. So that's how that naturally, that's how it works, right? So we're not making up stuff here. We're taking ideas that are already work and we're combining them into the dream optic system here, right? So I need wind holes. Look up the ACSS Aurora. That'll give you a good idea of kind of where I'm trying to go with this. You can also look up the 503G, holosun 503G. You can see how the three dots over there work. This idea is kind of like a combination of these two. And then for the magnifier, we want the auto ranging and mill lines built into the magnifier, right? So if I'm not shooting at distance, I can just flip it off and I don't see that information. But if I'm shooting at distance, I can flip it on and I can see that information. And the place to go look at this to get an idea of what I'm talking about is the Pegasus, right? Look up the Pegasus magnifier and you'll see it. And I would like it available in both 3x and 6x. And my feeling is, since this technology, all this technology right now is like already many years old, we should be able to get, okay, this Optic, you know, coming in at somewhere around $300, right? Like this holosun 510C, right? In fact, I think that it should probably maybe even be cheaper, right? Because it's not using the electronics, it's using fiber optics, you know, it's not using all the solar powered stuff. So it's actually a simpler design, okay? But I think it would need to be enclosed because of the fiber optic, and in order for it to work, it has to be enclosed. So the holosun 510, the holosun 512T is kind of the body that I'm envisioning, right? With the Acog fiber optic system built in there, right? With the ACSS reticle design, and then with the Pegasus style magnifier behind it with some improvements, which I think there's room for. So let me know what you guys think of my dream optic system here. So I'll give you guys a quick look of, this is what we call a complex reticle. Actually, let me pause this. I'm going to show you a different one as well. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now is the reticle that is in this scope, right? In this $1,500 Japanese glass, you know, primary arms PLX scope. Okay, so because it's a first focal plane, when you're in one power, you see this. So basically, you see a duplex reticle. These lines over here guide you to the center, and all you see is the horseshoe, right? You're not going to see the little chevron in the middle or all the fine details. Okay, now when you zoom up, right? When you zoom in, these things disappear out of your view, and then you see this, and now you're able to see the fine lines of the auto ranging, right? Your bullet drop over here, right? And the nice thing about this bullet drop over here, these lines over here, they match up to the width of a man's shoulders at different distances. So this is also you know, something interesting that might also be incorporated. Okay. So these lines here match up to the width of a man's shoulders. But now the problem with this is now we're kind of getting locked into a bullet specific bullet drop compensator, right? So with the dot design that I mentioned earlier, it's, you know, you can use it for an AK, you can use it for an AR, you can use it for anything, and you just got to figure out what it's going to be at different distances. Okay, but this might be something that's possible to incorporate. Over here to the side, you see that it's got those wind holes, you got the auto ranging off on the side, and then you've got mill lines, right, for you know, so for, let's say, ranging out like tractor trailers, doorways, and other things of different. So the point I'm trying to bring out here is that in you want to see something different in 1x versus when you're magnified, and that's what I want with the magnifier and the red dot. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link below in the comment section and in the description to a video series, to basically an LPVO and in general optic and red dot video series. I mean, there might be some like 30 videos in there by now that shows you the different things that I do with these scopes, how I range estimate, how I use the bullet drops, how I do auto ranging, because there's lots of things that you can do with these scopes that people aren't aware of. Okay, and that's one of the things I want to make people aware of. You should be able to get more out of a scope like this than just a bullet drop and magnification, right? There's lots of things. You can lead targets, right? You want to be able to lead a moving target. And one of the great things is that you can use, you know, you can use a complex reticle like this to lead moving targets. And now the way this one is set up is, if a man is running, basically, let's say he's running in this direction here. As soon as he crosses this line here, you basically take your shot. And then by the time the bullet gets there, you're going to make contact. But you can also use this to lead other things. Like, let's say I did a video where I'm leading cars and bicycles and jet skis and boats. Now, I had the scope off of the rifle when I was doing it. But the way I was doing it is I was putting the tip of the chevron on the thing, and I was counting either 2 seconds or 3 seconds and seeing how far, let's say, the jet ski got, right? So basically, jet ski's coming in. As soon as it crosses here, I go 1, 2. All right, so I see the jet ski got up here to this first line over here, right? So now I have an idea of how quick it's going to move. So now I would just lead it on the opposite side, okay? So as soon as it crosses that, I basically take my shot, okay? So you can use a complex reticle like this to figure out how to lead other targets. Now, the way you would do it, because it's never going to be precise, once you get an idea of what to lead it by, okay, what you start doing is then you start putting out a whole bunch of bullets. So as soon as you figure out what to lead it by, then you go boop, 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 and then it eventually runs into your bullets, right? But you got to have a starting point. You got to know where to start leading it by. In fact, I would probably pull a little further back. So if I do a 2-second count right over here, and let's say I got a car now. So 1, 2. Let's say it gets all the way out here. All right, so now I'm going to lead it on this side. So I would probably pull it a little further back. As soon as he crosses that, right, if let's say I got some type of Taliban dude, right, with one of those machine gun jeeps or something. He crosses this line over here. I start blasting, right, and then basically he's going to run into my bullets. So these are all the wonderful things that you can do with a complex reticle, right? But that's the great thing about having a 1.5 pounds on your gun. It's got to be able to do all those things. But the problem is I got a 1.5 pounds and I'm stuck with it. Versus with this, I can remove the magnifier, lighten up the gun, okay? So that's a big advantage. And again, I've got the problem with this, that if I'm shooting unconventional positions, like right now, all I see is shadow. All I see black in there. I can't see a picture. Whereas with this, if I'm holding it out here like this, I can see the picture, I can find the dot, I can get it on target. So that is much more usable, I think, for a combat type of situation, right? So again, there's a video where I'm combining the best features that currently exist, and I don't see a reason why they can't be combined into the system that I just talked to you guys about. Let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to you all soon.